couple of days ago, Pinkbike just came out with their yearly State of the Sport survey. This is asking riders and fans alike, how do they feel about the sport right now? How do they feel about the future of the sport? Do they feel like UCI and now Warner Brothers are doing a good job? And let me tell you, we're getting crazy responses. There's already been a lot of negativity around the sport right now, but I think this clearly pictures out where both riders and fans are feeling and where maybe some of those people are over-exaggerating. I've heard a lot lately, like downhill's gonna die. I don't think downhill's gonna die. I've heard a lot saying enduro's gonna die. Well, enduro might die, but that's okay. It's not okay. But anyway, let's get into the survey. How do pros and fans feel about Warner Bros. Discovery's organization and coverage of World Cup racing in 2024? State of the sport. Like I said, this is kind of reviewing, going over how do we feel about the racing system now that Red Bull is no longer covering the downhill races and the cross-country races, and a couple of the changes that they have made since they have taken over for Red Bull. Like I said, 108 responses by riders, 4,055 responses by the public. So, first off, the first question. I have confidence in Warner Bros. Discovery and its plans for racing. Public survey, people are a little more pessimistic than the riders. Nobody strongly agreed with this, which I would say is not, as you can assume, is not very good. I do think the riders in general have a little bit better. Ooh, my light went out. Just a second. Okay, we're back. So the riders had a little more confidence than a lot of the than the public, although the majority of them were just neutral. As you go on, the pattern is going to be that the public is a lot more pessimistic than the riders, even though the riders are neutral, if not pessimistic. So it's not a great look, but it kind of is what it is. Will paid coverage for World Cup racing lead to better investment in the sport? That's kind of a weird way to phrase that question. Again, the public not very hyped about that, and we get some very likely by some riders. I think just in general, this is a kind of a two-edged sword. I think it's fine to have paid coverage as long as you also have free coverage. We have in a world where like that balance is super, super important. More funding into mountain biking is never a bad thing. However, it does definitely hurt that all of this was free. So you've now, a segment that was free has now become paid, and that definitely hurts. And I don't like it, not gonna lie. I'd love to have more free stuff, but if it means that there is more money in racing, I'm here for it. However, how are those funds being allocated and stuff? And that is where I think a lot of people are frustrated. We have, of the responses, again, mostly negative. Once again, the public is mostly negative. Riders are mostly neutral, if not negative. There's been adequate communication about this year's racing. This one, much more negativity. And I have to admit, we've heard basically nothing about the race season and what's going on. Are there going to be changes to the format? Have they learned and grown about what people have said? We don't know. We haven't heard anything. I am going to be making some videos leading up to this race, the race coming in 2 weeks, and we don't know a lot as of right now. Warner Brothers Discovery visions for the sport will make it easier for the best riders to make it to the top. This one, the public very much was not for. This was a lot more neutral when it came to the riders. Not nearly as many as you can see here. Only 8 strongly disagree with this, whereas by far most were neutral, and even one person strongly agreed. So not much to say there. That's just how people feel. How do you rate the inclusion of semifinals to the World Cup race weekend? Very negative. This was one of the few questions where the riders were more negative than the public. Nobody likes the semifinals. I think the few people that are neutral about it are the high-end riders, and that's who it does help. But up and coming and privateer racers, it has not helped them having the semifinals thing. You have to maintain so many points and able to even stay in the finals or to even qualify to race, period. And as we well know, there was a rider last year, his name is slipping my mind, he wasn't even allowed to compete because the semifinal points don't even count for you being able to compete at UCI downhill races or races in general, which is crazy. Oh, they also, another important thing, the inclusion of the semifinal race drops the, it breaks up the top 60 men and top 15 women into 30 men and 10 women for a smaller, more broadcastable finals. And while Red Bull was only broadcasting the top 30 and top women anyway, those other 30 and other 5 women were still being included in the finals. They just weren't being broadcasted. And while it is true that you might miss the winning run if due to weather reasons or people getting hurt or someone just absolutely going off, I just don't see it. I don't get it. How do race fans feel about the Warner Brothers after 1 year? Did you pay for access? Of the people who responded, this is just who paid, 1,300 and 2,737 did not. Now, how satisfied were you with the race coverage? So there's the top one is all responses. Let me get it a little higher. The top one is all responses and the bottom one is paid for, who paid for it. Slightly more satisfied for those who paid for it. Obviously, you weren't going to be hyped if you didn't pay for it and you were used to watching them, but then you also get a lot of people who are neutral, satisfied. They're just going to watch the top race runs anyway as they come out on YouTube, which I get. How likely are you to pay for this World's Race Cup coverage? This should be no surprise. Of the people that paid last year, they're going to pay, a large portion of them are going to pay again. And those people that didn't pay, I mean, this one you basically don't learn anything. How do riders feel after? Most are acceptable, which did surprise me. I accepted there to be a lot more negativity, although this is a bad look. There being like 0 very goods. There's 1 very good, and that's probably some nice Nancy or something. Somebody that just being nice, let's be honest. But yeah, not a good look for Warner Brothers. I have confidence in Warner Brothers discovering and its plans for racing. This one's rough. So this survey last year, people were fairly confident, and yeah, way more negative people. Way more negative. Everybody has shifted down towards the negative, which is no bueno. Warner Brothers discovery controlling the broadcast rights makes me nervous. Again, another shift in 2024. More people being negative. There's been adequate communication to racers about this year's racing. Again, between 23 and 24, another trend of negativity. Live broadcast coverage for junior downhill racing and U23 XC racing has been positive for the sport. I mean, of course, everyone's going to love more coverage. Everyone's going to love more. That is something that UCI and Warner Brothers did do right, is the coverage, live coverage of the junior races, which is awesome. We love to see it. Now we'll actually get to follow those up-and-coming riders. So, of course, awesome to see that and hyped to continue to see them progress and stuff. These are just Pinkbike. You'll have to look at some of these comments. They are not great. People angry per usual, but how much is it just growing pains and how much is it, I do wonder how much of this is just growing pains and how much of this is actually they're doing a bad job. Unanimously, the Enduro World Cup has been absolutely dropped. I mean, I didn't hear anything come out of Enduro last year. And Sam Hill and Richie Rude left some of the biggest stars of the sport, which is not good for a sport. Like if someone just decided to switch disciplines halfway through a different sport, that's not good. So hopefully Enduro doesn't die. But yeah, there's been almost 0 Enduro live coverage. I will leave a link to this if you want to leave. Read the statement from Warner Bros. Discovery. It is right here. Go ahead and pause the video. Basically what they said, I went over this earlier today. They said that they are committed to doing better. They believe that they have what they have the right idea and heart of where they want this to go. We'll see how that actually pans out in the future. Overall, though, not good. My thoughts of this, I mean, when stuff doesn't work out, obviously people are going to be upset, but I don't know how much of this is they suck and how much of this is it's just their first year doing it. I do think, however, the two things that absolutely need to change, if I could just give two things, is semifinals need to go. You shouldn't have to have a qualifying run, a semifinals run, and a finals run. I think it's just dangerous for riders. If you're riding 33%, having 33% more race runs during the year, we need people to we want racers to stay healthy throughout the course of the season. So hopefully that can get changed. And then, of course, unless we just want Enduro to die, we should probably give Enduro live coverage, because that's how people want to, for the most part, interact with it, unless you have another plan for getting that information out there and keeping the sport alive. I am very intrigued, though, to see how this year goes. We should have some videos coming up next week on the track, and then I will have my predictions coming up next. So, after no further ado, thank you for watching, everybody, and peace.